So last bit of this third Thursday, we're going to do a farmers forum, which is really exciting. We got some inspiration from the Oak Conference, and I want to give a shout out to Linnell over here because this is kind of her baby. So she really did a lot of the legwork in here. I know Dr. Lucas kept giving us a shout out, but I just want to say Linnell did a really awesome job putting on this wonderful third Thursday. So I just want to give her one more round of applause. And also thank you to media and thank you to everyone who helped put this on. So we're going to get started. So our first farmer, we're all going to have them come up, introduce themselves, talk briefly, and then once you're done, you can either sit back down where you're at or sit here, and then we'll get into the forum. I also want to say we'll have a chance to ask questions at the end. Make sure you talk into the microphone if you are either the presenter or the person asking questions, just for retrospectively, when we have this in recording, that's the only way to hear what you are saying. So if you don't speak into the microphone, we will not have that on the recording. But with that in mind, we're going to have Jim Coleman come up. He is from Coleman Crest Farm. It is a versatile family farm with a rich history spanning 135 years where organic agriculture practice thrives. So with that being said, welcome Jim Coleman.
It is always a pleasure to be here at Kentucky State to talk about Coleman Crest Farm. And I'm going to take you through a few quick slides. I'm going to stick to my time here, Linnell, so you can get the cane out and pull me off when I'm through talking here. I guess you go this way. There you go. That was a very special day, you all. That was the day that I got groundwater finally on my farm. It tapped into an aquifer about 160 feet deep, and I'll talk about that in a little while, but that day was a major game changer. I want to also say that my parents, Sam and Cleo Coleman, were graduates here at Kentucky State. They were from the class of 1949. My father was the secretary of the Future Farmers Association here at Coleman Crest Farm. So you can see here in that next picture I'm going to show you, he was right there in front of, I think it's Hume Hall, the administration building. And then you can see my mother up there. She was studying sociology. My father stayed in Atwood Hall and my mother stayed in Kentucky Hall. That's a picture of my father standing out there with all of his other comrades who were going to be the future farmers of Kentucky. They had just come from their third Thursday meeting, and they took this picture, and they were all committed to organic farming. They were doing organic farming before it was even cool. Hume Hall, yeah, right there. Now this kind of takes you through the quick history of Coleman Crest Farm. It was purchased by my great-grandfather, James Coleman. He was born into slavery in 1845. He joined the Union Army, and that was the way he got his freedom, fought in the major battle called Milliken's Bend in Louisiana, got his freedom, came back home in 1863, and he was able to, with the help of what Booker T. Washington created, which was called the Union Benevolent Society, where he encouraged African Americans to pull their money together because they couldn't get loans with mainstream banks. They were locked out. Many could have said, you know what, I'm just going to give up. I can't get a loan. I can't go to college. I can't join the local chamber. But Booker T said, well, let's try to figure it out ourselves. And so he encouraged African Americans in their little hamlets all throughout the southeastern part of the United States to pull their money together. It was called the Union Benevolent Society, and they issued loans to each other to do two things: to bury loved ones and to buy land. Fortunately, my great-grandfather was on the board, so I think he got a little bit of a special rate. He was able to get a loan from the Union Benevolent Society for $1,200 and purchased the land that he had tilled as a slave for $1,200. And that day, I like to say I was conceived. That's when I was thought about, as well as 300 of my other cousins and relatives, because that was a game changer for us. Fast forward, my great-grandfather had 6 children. His wife's name was Lucy. They had 2 girls and 4 boys. And he died in 1910. His wife Lucy died years before that. And that's when my grandparents took over the farm, John and Molly. So you see that in that picture right below the deed. John and Molly had a total of 7 kids. The little guy in the middle there is my father. His name was Sam Coleman. And again, they raised 7 kids. 5 out of the 7 kids were able to go to college. 3 of them went to Kentucky State, including my father. And they were able to do that because they produced everything from tobacco, corn, cows, pigs, everything you can think of on the farm. And they continue to take notes out from the Union Benevolent Society. One of my uncles went to Morehouse College. They took out a note for $500 on the farm. That was like $50,000 back then. And the note was $7, and they got behind. They almost lost it, but my grandmother, Molly, talked in tongues and ran the banker away, and he never came back, and that kept it. So prayer does work. Fast forward, you can see the night before my parents were married on February the 4th, 1950. That's a picture of all of John and Molly's kids. Again, they were all self-sustainable and successful, and I think a lot of it was because of what they learned about growing up on the farm, being independent, learning about business, being responsible, and they were all very successful. My parents got married in 1950, and that's the house that you see under my wife and I. That's the house they built on the farm, so that was the second house. And then my wife and I, Kathy, took over the farm in 2001. We purchased it from my mother, and we were living in New York, and I didn't do anything to it but come down, maybe check on it twice a year, and it turned into a forest. And so when I came home to restore it, it really was in bad shape. Those were a few of the companies that I've worked for. Thank God for Coleman Crest as a result of it. But when I came back home, that was the look of what Coleman Crest was looking like after being away for about 40 years and owning the farm for 20 years. I had a lot of trees that had overgrown. It was out of control, looked like where Tarzan lived. That was the house that I grew up in. It was falling in. And so I went through a lot of repairs and restoration of the farm, put a new fence in, and I built a new house on the farm. That's the way it looks now. And most importantly, getting back to farming, is that I created this plan with Tony Silvernail. And I was fortunate enough to meet Eric Wallace and Gail Wallace and their son Grant. Grant became my farm manager. They had been doing organic farming for 25 years. So if you don't know how to do something, find somebody that does and ask for their help. And they were just so generous with their help. And so Grant and Tony helped me to pull together this plan that would lay out what we were going to do, when we were going to do it. Grant even helped me to create this whole layout of when things were going to happen on the farm. I grew up on the farm. I was the manager of the farm at age 12, but my father was telling me what to do. So I didn't know when to do anything. I would have been out there, even today, putting seeds in the ground in September. I just didn't know when. And so Grant came up with this plan. And by the way, on next Wednesday, we're going to have a free webinar, and I've got flyers. Grant's going to show you all how we do it. And he's got everything from the calendar to the seed order, all the way to knowing the sales per category. And he's created this spreadsheet that's just a game changer. And so if you'd like to be on that call, I've got flyers for you to be able to participate next week. That's the look of the field when it's sleeping. I bought a brand new Kubota tractor to get out there to start helping me to break up the ground a little bit, to start putting some seed in the ground. A big thing, like I was saying a little bit earlier, we installed this brand new well. Grant said you've got to have a well so that you've got a reliable source 160 feet deep in the ground. It took a while for it to come up. I'm like, at 150, nothing was coming up. 155, a little mud was coming up. And then 160, it was like, I felt like Jed Clampett on Beverly Hillbillies. All that is, Texas tea. And it really is. As you all know, water on a farm it's like breaking into oil. It is a game changer. And it increases that day. It increased the value of my farm probably by about $250,000 to $300,000. Just that alone. If I didn't do anything else, that alone. And then we included an irrigation system, had an irrigation company come out. We built plastic mulch beds with the bed maker, and each of those beds has a drip line under it that's linked up to the well, 160 feet, Molly's well. I call it after my grandmother. And the crops love it. Then another big milestone happened was the day that was a game changer, July the 19th, 2022. After a lot of help from Tony Silvernail and Grant, Coleman Crest Farm became the first African-American owned farm in the state of Kentucky that's certified organic, and I'm very proud of that. And that's in honor to my father and my great-grandfather and all the wonderful people that came before me. We were recertified on October 31st of last year, and we're working hard to maintain that certification. I've got to stop by the extension office to get a few soil sample bags today so I don't lose them. All right, we work with our pollinators. We are at Coleman Crest Farm. The only pest on our farm is a human being. Human beings came here. All of our friends up on that wall were here 25 million years. We showed up 5 million years ago. They come first. These are my partners. I learned at Oak we grew that sunflower that you see. That's a live picture. And when you grow sunflowers, they bring in all the butterflies and all the bees. The year before, I didn't have sunflowers. I was getting about 40 to 50 pods on each okra plant. The year I grew my sunflowers, it took it 75 to 90. And it was a game changer because of so much more pollination that was going on. That's a few pictures of us out and working in the field. Okra's my favorite. Insects, they hate the smell and taste of it. It grows, you clip it today and you go back, it's ready tomorrow. I've got Ramsey's and a few other customers in Lexington that just can't get enough of it. It's a great product, and that's the way it looks at Good Foods. I'm very proud of that. And that's it on Coleman Crest Farm. Thank you all so much for your time. I'll be here to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Jim. Just a reminder, we can have questions to the farmers after they all present. I would like to present our next farmer, Jessica Lopez, from the Lopez Farm, established in 2012. Family farm consists of Horacio, Jessica, Esmeralda, Diego, Soledad, and Valentin. They offer CSA packages, including various meats, and they raise multiple species of livestock on their small homestead. Jessica.
Hello, I'm short, sorry. So, I'm Jessica Lopez. I am the brains behind Lopez Land Farm. I did bring one of my better halves with me, Esmeralda, she's here with me. So, we're here in Franklin County. We are a small farm homestead. We try to produce all of our produce. We do all of our own meats. We haven't bought meat in 2 years, and we produce a significant amount of all of our meat. So this photo in particular, this is our beautiful high tunnel to the right. It's a 16 by 96 high tunnel, with this being the organic conference. Well, we went to the organic conference, but this is our main organic parcel. This is what we want to certify organic. The greenhouse to the left is our aquaponics. So we raise tilapia, and we raise some of our vegetables in there too, but aquaponics is not certifiable organic yet. So our number one thing is getting that high tunnel organic. We practice already organically, as my workers are my children. So when they're hungry, they can just pick it and eat it. So I don't have to worry about, is that safe for my children to eat? Because it is, and we know it is. So that gives us confidence as parents, knowing that they can do that. So if we're able to do that for our own family, why not do it for everyone else's family as well? So there's our property. We are literally on 5.5 acres. It's our little slice of pizza. That's what it is. So our house is in the top left corner, and that's where all the brain work happens. We do raise multiple species of livestock, so we have sheep and goats, cows, and a burro. Don't know why we have a burro, but we do. We do meat rabbits, we have chickens, we do the eggs, meat, and we also do breeding. And then, again, we raise tilapia. And believe it or not, we had tilapia still swimming after this -degree weather. Even Dr. Novello said they should not be swimming. And they were. Surprisingly, they were still, and they weighed about 1.5 pounds each after we harvested. So we were very happy with our tilapia this year. And then produce. So this is inside of our high tunnel. We got our high tunnel through NRCS with Michael that was here earlier. There's a lot of good pros and cons with these high tunnels. So make sure if you do get a high tunnel, do your research. Our high tunnel, because the way our property is laid out, we're kind of in a valley. So we could have went wider, but then it doesn't make sense to our property. So make sure what you get makes sense to your property. So we had to go very narrow and very long. In doing that, you should get 2 doors. One in the front, one in the back. And when you pick out your doors, make sure they're big enough that a motor vehicle can go through. Because my children will tell you that putting compost in there with 5-gallon buckets sucks. It's a lot of man work, and they will definitely vouch for that. So in our high tunnel, we do successfully do a CSA bag share. So we've done it, this will be year 3, we've done CSAs. Now we're not big, we're not Elmwood by any means. Again, this is very small scale. We do about 20 shares a year, and that's strictly first come, first serve. If we do have extras, we will sell. But we also have a certified Farm Bureau roadside on-farm market. So we technically sell off of our front porch. So you'll see a picture. No, I didn't include that. But if you are interested into that, you can ask me. But again, in our high tunnel, we grow a big variety. So you're not going to only get tomatoes out of this. Everything that we produce comes out of this high tunnel. So I mean, last year we had onions, turnips, beets. We had tomatoes. We had cucumber. We had our herbs in there. We had some okra. I do not like okra. But our CSA shareholders do. So I will gladly raise that if you would like that in your bag. So, and then we had squash, zucchini, and then you can see 2 of my workers in there. One is here today. And again, they're the ones that are picking. Like, my children are the ones picking and bagging your bags that you get from us. So we take very big pride in doing that. And we do more growing than just in the high tunnel. So we do high tunnel for our CSAs, which is what we're doing organic. We also do outside growing. So we do have rows, again, because we have it's like an incline, like a hill. So we do lots of row gardening. So here you can see Esmeralda getting some of our heirloom tomatoes. This, again, if you're getting a high tunnel, you need fans. You need irrigation. So here you can see that there is a fan. Well, if you have one made into your actual high tunnel, you don't have to go around buying these $20 box fans. It's ridiculous. And then again, we do a lot of repurposing of things. So that particular fan is sitting on top of a stool. And again, the silver things, those are bakery sheet holders, and that's what our peas grew up. And I mean, it works. We repurpose literally everything. This is how we plant. We don't have that Kubota tractor. I would like a Kubota tractor. We don't have that. So when we plant, each plant is planted by hand by a Lopez. Like, this is what we do. And this, 2 of my other children, they're home. And then this is before growing season, and this is during growing season. There you can see, and again, our watering. Drip irrigation would be phenomenal. Again, we do not have that. So what you see is hand watering. Our neighbors taught my children how to water. He's a 70-year-old perfectionist when it comes to gardening, and he has taught my children, you take your watch and you count 20 seconds. If you count fast, you go to 30. So that's how my children water. And again, you can see their watering is very well done. And then here you can kind of see, this is how we grow outside on our row gardens. So it's just your typical row. It's again on a hill, you can see. And another thing with a high tunnel, building it yourself sucks. So if you can afford to get someone to help build your high tunnel, do it. Definitely do it. Me and my husband put that up, and it was a bear. It was a literal bear. And then on the top picture on the right, that is our aquaponics system. So we grow a lot. We do cold and warm crops in there. So we'll do leafy greens during the wintertime and then during the summer. A lot of people didn't, I guess, understand and realize that you can grow fruit-bearing plants in an aquaponic system. You can. I should have included it, but my fish feeder dropped some chicken feed in the barrel, and we were growing corn because the corn started growing in our rocks. So we were successfully growing corn in aquaponics, not meaning to. And here are a few of our things where we're certified through. We're MPIP because we do our own chicken flock. That way we're able to, because we also use the MPIP or MPU unit here at KSU, where we process our own chickens, rabbits, and fish here. So I highly recommend them. Very big in 4-H, Kentucky proud. We've got all the small ruminants. We're on-farm certified market, home-based processor, microprocessor. We just got accepted for accepting SNAP this year, so we're really excited about that. And there we go. We do lots of on-farm education, value-added products, on-farm meat processing education, hide and fur preserving, and a lot of DY farm addition. So there's my info. Thank you.
Thanks, Jessica. So our next speaker is Keith McKenzie. He is at Nob Hill Farm with his wife. They started in 2004 when Keith and his wife were looking for a small parcel of land. At the time, they had no idea what they wanted to do with it, but they knew that they wanted to give back to the land. They soon realized the best way to give back to the land is with a shared experience. Since starting their farm, they have encouraged others to get more involved in farming. So let's have Keith up here.
Hey, great. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here to share just a little smidgen of our experience. My wife and I are Catherine. So one of the things I would suggest, though, is that you would have us, part of this panel, on the front end of your third Thursday. So we can reach more folks and talk about how great of a job we're doing with this organic farming. One of the things I like to do is just kind of qualify my being here. And I got a call yesterday asking if I had a presentation. That's the first I heard of that. I was like, okay, but here we go. You know, I come from a huge family. I was born in Clark County, Alabama, and my mother had 13 or so siblings. And I got a bunch of cousins. And actually, I was telling Mr. Miller about one of my first cousins in Clark County. She oversees a 200-head herd of certified black Angus cattle. I share that because I was talking with that same cousin. I says, why is it that I find myself, I'm one of 7 brothers and sisters. And I said, why do I find myself doing this sort of stuff? She said, well, it's in your blood. It's just a part of who you are. And I say that because from my humble beginnings of Clark County, if you go up one county, Clark County, Alabama, we are south of the Black Belt. Anybody understand when I say that? Who knows what I'm talking about when I say Black Belt? 1 or 2 folks. The Black Belt, from one side of Alabama to the other side, is where the birth of a lot of the civil rights stuff occurred. You with me on that? So now the north of us, you have that going on, and south of us, which is Mobile, which is going to be shipping ports. So for us, for my family, it was a homestead mentality. You get that? Subsistence living, subsistence agriculture. I don't know when that term came up, but for us growing up, we didn't know what the hell subsistence mean. We was just surviving and living and making do with very little. And so that's a part of who I am, a part of my story. And you fast forward, we go up to Davis County, Kentucky. Anybody from the big D, Davis County? Okay. South of Davis County, Kentucky, my wife and I purchased 32 acres in McLean County, which is Calhoun, Kentucky, where Charlie's Compost is. And I'll talk to you very little about a little bit about composting because that's I'm going to be like your Johnny Appleseed, right? We want to plant apple trees everywhere. We want to come to you about composting. We want to get Kentucky composting. Is that fair enough, Dr. Lucas? That's kind of our rallying call right about now. But then listen, so we leave Davis County, and then we find ourselves coming up to Louisville, Kentucky, where I had to get my degree and make a living. I didn't go to the Fortune 500s, but I became a social worker. I had to figure out a way to put the food on the table because my wife said, you got to get out and do something. So then from Jefferson County, we bought our first parcel of land. It was almost 15 acres. It had been hayed and hayed and hayed to it was just nothing but broom sage on end. It was just so deprived of any soil, organic matter, and nutrients, and so on and so forth. So for my wife and I, we started with this first parcel of land. No infrastructure, no road, no water, no other stuff in that process. So we built from 14 acres. We now manage with our daughter, we now oversee 71 acres down in Brackenridge County. And we're really excited about that. Now that I've done that, we find ourselves now operating a 26-acre organic farm. Now, prior to getting to this organic certification, we had to put together a business plan. Yes, Jim did a good job on the presentation of that matrix. How do you do what you do? But I think we all as farmers will get to this place. Either you learn, or you will recognize and understand this and master it, or you will belly up and go bankrupt. And what is that? Understanding where your value is, understanding where your agency is, understanding what your goal and your mission is as a farmer. So my wife and I, we just went back and forth on a number of concepts. We didn't have water at one point. We bought water from the road, thank God, because we were thinking about closing up the farm. Water is your lifeline of your farm, point blank. We talked about cattle, talked about bees, we talked about row crop, we talked about forestry, we talked about a number of things, but we finally settled on mixed vegetables. We finally settled. My wife is from a generation of farmers. Her brothers right now in northern Ohio operate 800 to 1,000 acres. But what we finally settled on is what we knew. We knew how to grow vegetables. We basically understood how to take care of the soil. That's the way we've been. We didn't have much more. We were subsistence farmers. We lived a homestead in a subsistence way of life. So then we started trying to figure out our business plan. Our business plan was mixed produce. Then we started talking about meat, sheep. At one point, we had 30 heads of St. Croix sheep. But we didn't have good pasture. So we had to divest ourselves of our sheep and build up our pasture in soil organic matter. Look at the soil science guy here. Yeah, I understand that. So we had to get about the business of, we got, like I said earlier, 26 acres. So 20 of those acres is pasture. Now what I'm doing, unpacking my business plan. Are you hearing it? So now we got 26 acres of pasture where we can raise meat sheep. We also can rotate. That Dr. Lucas was talking about that, rotational grazing. We also will rotate when we will bale hay off of plot 1 or plot 2. This year we're going to rotate off of plot 2, and then next in the other plot 1 we're just going to mow it. Then we're going to allow our small herd to go and graze it as well. You see what we're doing? Now the next thing is that we raise these products, and we get them to the market. You raise them, you bring a cattle onto your property, what are you going to do with it? You bring vegetables on your property, how are you going to get rid of them? If you bring meat, sheep on your property, how are you going to get rid of them? Maybe it's another word versus get rid of. How are you going to get a return from your energy and your efforts? And for us, it was a farmer's market. For us, it was CSAs. For us, we're not really at the place of direct sales, but for us, it's direct sales. For us, it's also graded sales. For us, livestock markets, auctions. Did you see what I just unpacked just that quick? So I share that because that's part of my journey and part of my story as we farm and make a living at this farming thing. Folks, you can make a living farming. You just got to get about the business of doing it. It's going to take some work, but you're going to do it. You can do it. The other thing in that is you got to, one of the beautiful things about my wife and I, she's an educator and lifelong educator, and I'm a social worker. So by default, we're going to have some sense of structure. By default, we're going to have some sense of record keeping. By some sense, we're going to have a sense of what they call disciplines, theories, and concepts. We're not scared of science, and so on and so forth. As Dr. Lucas, every time I listen to him talk, he just gives me more and more understanding about soil science and the power of that. And I got about a minute left, but here's the other thing I want to talk about, is that our farm, the lifeline of our farm, is going to exist, going to rest on our ability as stewards to maintain, first, to build up soil organic matter and then maintain that. You talked about sustainability. We cannot sustain at a pace and a rate that we are at now the losing of good farm land. We cannot sustain that. But what we can do is be about the business of building up good soil organic matter from 1 inch, or maybe, 2 inches, back to 6 to 12 inches that where it used to be. So then when we are no longer here, we'll hand this land over to our kids in the next generation where they can do a lot of good stuff with it for years to come. Thank you, guys. You've been great.
Thank you, Keith. Our last farmer presenter is Kayla Carey. She's from Rookery Flower Co. Rookery Flower Co. is the first generation flower farmers. They love working the land using regenerative practices and promoting local source flowers to us all. Kayla.
Hello. Thanks for having me. I love to be able to preach the local flower love to everyone because not everybody has a lot of exposure to local flowers. But first, a little about me. I live and farm in North Franklin County in Peaks Mill near West 6 Farm. If you know where that is, you can usually find me there. We grow specialty cut flowers as well as some vegetables for our own use, and then we raise Katahdin sheep for meat, and we have pet goats and chickens. I also own the Kentucky Flower Market, which is a collective of local flower growers in the central Kentucky area. We have about 32 farms, I think, at this point that participate. But basically, it's just where we aggregate flowers from local flower farms to make the selling process easier for them. Because our main goal is to make flower farming a profitable and just be able to have a livelihood off of flower farming. So you should check that out. We're not organic certified, but we practice organic practices. We also adopt like the no-till ethos, so we're really into that. We're really into cover cropping and rotating our flowers. We live on 30 acres, but we farm under an acre. Flowers you can stuff tons in a little space. We also just got a high tunnel, which is very exciting. We've been growing our flowers in low cats in the field for some time, but now our production is going to be even more exciting. Yeah, I think basically the way we do things out on the farm are creating habitats for beneficial insects specifically, rotating our ruminants around, using, trying to do like a closed loop on our farm, using the ruminant poop and our chicken poop to feed our garden. Yeah, and we just, we put beneficial nematodes out. We do basically anything. We don't spray. My Instagram handle is Weederfinger because that's what I be doing all the time. But it's okay. We raise anything from woody perennials like peonies to very fancy specialty cut Lysianthus, if you've ever heard of that. Dahlias, zinnias, sunflowers, all of it. And we integrate our vegetables in that garden. We also put out bird baths and other areas to attract good animals to our garden. Yeah, we are moving back to the Kentucky Flower Market. We're moving it to Frankfort. So if you're in Frankfort, you should come check it out. Most people don't know, but about 80% of cut flowers in the United States are imported from Ecuador, Colombia, the Netherlands, and a really big passion piece for me is to decrease that number so that local flowers are the main deal, not imported flowers. And there's room for everybody. And a lot of people think a lot of flower farmers have competition with other flower farmers, but the truth is there's tons of room for everybody. So if you're thinking about cut flowers, you should go for it. Yeah, I don't really have a lot to say. I didn't bring a presentation. I love local flowers. I love trying to make the ground better and make the earth a better place, and spread the local flower love. So if you have any question about flowers, you can always call me. Thanks.
Cool. So if our 4 farmers want to come up here, we're going to get started on the forum. We're just going to spend the next 30 minutes on this forum, and maybe we'll pepper it throughout with the group's questions. So if you think of something during this talk, that's kind of how the panels when I was at Oak functioned. Someone will bring you a microphone. So we have Shun walking around with that. So if something comes to mind that you want to ask one of these farmers, either during their presentation or during this conversation, more than welcome to raise your hand and ask them. Again, thank you all for being here. Just make sure you guys share that microphone so that we can get that on the recording. So with that being said, I'm going to ask the first question. Me and Linnell are going to moderate for you all. So yeah, and really just whoever thinks that they have the answer first, all 4 of you can answer. You've probably done one of these before, at least seen one. So first question I want to ask is, and a lot of you answered this question, but maybe if you want to go into further detail, is do you farm organic or do you practice organic? And then are you certified? If not certified, I know a couple of you had answered that question. Maybe speak on your process if you plan on becoming certified and what are the steps you're going to take. And then just any further experiences in organic specifically, since this is Organic Third Thursday. So take it away.
Okay, I am a certified organic farmer, and I'm committed to the environment and good health. My wife, Kathy, passed away in 2020 from breast cancer, and she was very committed to organic farming. And in honor of her, as well as I know the impact to all of our health, I want to be making as much contribution to helping all of us to remain healthy for the rest of my life, and I want to do that through my farm. And so that's really one of the primary drivers for me on wanting to be organic. The other is that it allows you to be different in the market. When you are looking at my accounts, I've got one account, Good Foods. I've got Critchfield's and a couple other great accounts, Ramsey's, and some really great restaurants. But especially in the retail category, you've got 4 levels of produce. The top level, the Maker's Mark level, is certified organic local. That's Coleman Crest Farm. That's at the top. That's 4 Seasons. You're the price maker. Not bragging, but you've got customers out there, they don't care what the price is. They want Coleman Crest Farm, locally grown, beautiful, good tasting, freshly picked an hour ago produce. I work hard to get that in the stores. I work it myself. I'm committed to it. Number 2, certified organic anywhere you can get it. Number 3, great looking produce that happens to be conventional, that's local, that's hot. And then, and this is from one of my customers told me this, by the way, you all. And then 4th is just get it to us where it's not rotten and it looks good and tastes good. And so being certified organic helps to differentiate me in the market. It certainly gets me a chance to be able to sell my produce at a higher level. And it allows me to make the investments that you saw in my farm that makes it more sustainable for the future, and it increases the valuation of my property. I'm a big believer in that we all work hard. We're not doing it just to produce a product, but we want to end up having that land to increase in value over time. And that's what happened. Today, 135 years ago, it was worth $1,200. Today, I've got a buyer there. $10 bidder now, $20 bidder now, $30. Hopefully, with what I've done on the farm and gotten it to where it's an organic, certified organic business. And by the way, I'm doing so right now, 1 acre. I've got a total of 3 acres that are certified organic, but only 1 acre. And last year I did about $13,000 in gross sales, and with the help of Ashley Smith at Black Soil and KDA with the Feeding Kentucky program, this year we're probably going to do about $80,000. And that's a full price, certified organic, going to our fellow residents who are dealing with food insecurity. My parents and my wife are shouting from heaven about that. It's doing good and doing well, and that's what I truly love about being certified organic. You truly are doing the right thing for the environment. You're doing the right thing for all the pollinator partners. You're doing the right thing for your customers and consumers, and you're doing the right thing for yourself in increasing the valuation of your farm.
Yeah.
So we are not certified organic, but we are in transition to do so. We are one of the mentees that Kenya was speaking of earlier. We're only a month in, and the resources that I have gotten from Kenya and then Sarah and then my mentor herself, Anna, my high tunnel is completely made of 180. Like, it's crazy, just from utilizing someone else's brain to get to where I want to be, not only for our farm, but for our children. We are doing all of what we're doing for them. We wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for our children. It really wouldn't be. But I highly recommend contacting Oak just because they're so knowledgeable. And I can already see my certificate. I can see it. And I'm just trying to grab it. So we're going to get certified with the help of Oak. So I highly recommend Miss Kenya for that.
We are certified, and hang in there, it will get better.
We are not. Right now for cut flowers, you can't quite ask a higher price for organic cut flowers because apparently nobody cares except for me. But I would love to be certified organic in the future. I would love to produce edible flowers. But yeah, we do organic practices, and we think that soil health and earth health and animal health is important.
Thanks.
I have another question for you all. If you haven't been an organic farmer this entire time, how was your experience transitioning to organic farming? What would you do differently if you were to transition to organic farming today?
Wow.
we had, I think we've been transitioning for a number of years prior to officially engaging in the organic certification process. I'm not quite sure what we would have done different, because you don't know what you don't know. And as I try to rack my brain for something concrete, is that you mentioned the word mentor. I would maybe take it even a step further, and that is joining the organic community. If not, because even today I reach out to non-organic growers. Actually, you guys know Susan Miller, right? I'll call Jim. Jim won't return my call, but I'll call Susan and she will. But no, I think what I would do different is to join a community. Because there's a lot of practices, because another thing too, when you're a part of a community and you don't have to hold it all in your mind by yourself. You can call and let it go and then call back and talk with someone else. And then technical support that you could also get with Oak. But I'm thinking that's when it became official. It wasn't until I reached out to KDA and then I got introduced to Oak at that point. But now, to me, you're too far. You're into the process by then. And I'm thinking before that point, if anybody thinking about taking it to the next level, is to join a community. And I hope you understand when I say that.
We thrive with community. We love learning. We love teaching. I'm a homeschool mom. I love to teach, but I thoroughly love to learn. So learning from the community, knowing what the community wants, likes, and just taking in sometimes unwanted advice, but I still listen.
Yes.
But community is a massive thing. And then coming back to whether it's organic or it's not, I have clientele now. They don't care what I produce as long as I am producing it. They don't care. The organic, I'm really, really looking forward to putting that label on my product. That is very, very, very important to me personally. For my farm, my children could probably care less at this point. But again, that's what we're trying to encourage them. You need to know that. We literally went to Walmart the other day and bought bananas. And my son said, "These are organic bananas." I said, "Yeah, they're better for you. You might find a bug because it wasn't sprayed." And he's like, nope, I don't want it. There's a bug. So now he's like, "Is there a bug in my food?" And I'm like, "No, you totally took that the wrong way. Don't do that." I told him that, and he just, no. He's 12 and he's grossed out by it. But I am all for not only asking the prices that I want to ask, but just having the trust in that label itself. I want my people to trust me as much as my children do. I want to build that community based upon the O word, the organic, knowing it is as safe for my children to pick it off the vine as for you to get it in your bag. I thrive with that.
I would say that it was a challenging experience. I had Tony Silvernell as well as Dr. Lucas help me with the transitional process. I thought it was pretty tough in the beginning. Then all of a sudden I concluded to myself one day, I said, if it were easy, everybody would be doing it. And thank goodness they're being tough because they're scaring away all my competition. If it was easy, everybody, then I would have to find another way to separate myself from the market. So it is worth it to go through a very difficult process. It is worth it to have to leave your doors open to where the government can come in at any time and tell you what's going on, get your dirt, get your soil tested, get your water tested, where your invoices. Everybody can't deal with that. But if you can, you deserve to be able to make more money. That's number one. Number two, while you're going through the transitional process, you can stick to all the organic principles and have it in the market to where you're all natural. And we did that, and that helped us to get above a price above conventional. So you can still promote it as all natural, so that's good. And it gets your customers used to knowing that you've got a good, fresh, natural, produce coming. I guess the third thing is that I would probably have included more kids earlier on. This year is going to be the first year that I utilized the Lexington-Fayette County Jobs Training Program for the summer. And when I got into this, I'm thinking, how am I going to manage a farm and babysit kids during the summer? But you're missing out on an opportunity and being able to get help. But the bigger thing, you're missing out on an opportunity to give back. And so we're going to have, for the first time, 4 summer interns who are in junior and high school this summer to help us out on the farm. It's going to be good for them. And then the last thing that I would encourage all of you to do, that I'm going to do, is to really get more into the actual product and what it does for our health. So for instance, okra is good for reducing diabetes. That's why I'm excited about the Feeding Kentucky program, in that food is medicine. And so Medicaid individuals are going to be able to get their prescriptions, and instead of the doctor saying, your AC1's way up, you 9, you better cut back or you're going to have to get a leg cut off. If we're going to put you on metamorphin, they're going to say, you don't need metamorphin, you need to go to Ashley Smith at Black Soil and get you some Coleman Crest Farm okra. And I'm going to give you a prescription right now, and that's going to lower it, and it's all natural. That's what I want to be known for. So I want to better market what my produce does for each. I'm going to be growing this year okra, red potatoes, Yukon Gold, beets, zucchini, and squash. And I want to really produce recipes on the best ways to prepare it, because a lot of people don't know how to prepare okra. Most people say, I hate okra. Well, there are a lot of different ways that you can prepare it, whether if you're going to Ramsey's and it's in succotash, or you can saute it. I've got to do a better job as a farmer to help my consumers to know how to prepare all of the different produce that I have. And then lastly, we're going to get very aggressive on the marketing, and I've written these children's books. They're all on Amazon if you want to buy one. The first one is called Don't Sell the Goose That Lays the Golden Egg, and these are all life lessons about little Jimmy at Coleman Crest Farm. Well, I'm Big Jimmy. And little Jimmy, these are all nonfiction, really true stories. And guess what, you all? When you go into my account, you're going to see little Jimmy, POS, point of sale materials, right beside my produce. So that when your son sees it, he's going to say, I don't want anybody else's but little Jimmy's produce, Mom. And that's going to communicate to all the kids that you need to be eating good. Because little Jimmy minded his parents, his mom and his dad. He was a good boy. And he raises organic produce at that historic farm that his great-grandfather purchased. And so I really want to get into, you were right on about the story of yourself and your farm. And that really builds your brand up, and thereby it helps you to get a better price in the market. So, you've got to have a good tasting product. It's got to look good. You've got to brand it the right way so that you can elevate it, and going certified helps you to get max out on your margin, which again helps you to pay for a Kubota tractor, helps you to get the well done, helps you to do these value adds that make it easier long-term for reducing your overall labor cost and operating cost so you can be more sustainable and profitable.
Thank you.
I think this is a good time to, I was going to say ask questions. We're about halfway through.
Technically, do you use any spray? Do you use any spray on your vegetable?
No chemicals. We use neem oil and Protect Net, and then we rotate, but we don't use any chemicals at all. We do everything certified organic, OMRI certified, but like last year I had potatoes and the bugs were everywhere. I shoved it and I thought that would do it, and you come back an hour later, it's like, they're back. And so on that, we use this neem oil that's mixed with water, and we spray it to, Grant says it doesn't kill them, it just makes them itch, and then they fly off to my neighbor farm next door. So I like to do everything I can do to not necessarily kill our fellow insects, but to prevent them from tasting our product and eating it. So I do everything in my power. Protect Net, we grew cabbage the first year. I just can't get the right price on cabbage, but it was a great year. But it's like candy, and if you don't cover it up with Protect Net, thereby preventing the insects from being able to get into eating it, they'll just eat it all up. And so at Coleman Crest, we do everything all natural, no chemicals, no any kind of Roundup or anything like that. We're just totally against it. I mean, if you do that in your own farm, God bless you, but that's not what we do.
I noticed on one of the picture you grew tomatoes.
Yes.
I sell at the farmer market, and we try to be, I'm not certified organic, but we try not to spray.
Yes.
But the blight
Yes.
and the bugs,
Yeah.
I mean, we cannot control them. I mean,
I
what do
couldn't
you
either.
do?
And I made a strategic decision. Grant, my farm manager, who his father is a genius, he had been farming for 25 years, and we had that to happen where, you know, we planted the seed in a little cup, then we put it in a big cup, then we transplant it, then we tie it to string, then we put a stake in it, then we tie it again, then we hug it, then we tell it good night, and then rain comes and 35% of the crop's gone from this fungus. I said, Grant, we're not going to do this next year. He said, you got to have tomatoes. I said, Grant, this is a for-profit farm. This ain't not for profit. This is for profit. And until we get like a tunnel to protect it, maybe, but we're going to do things that help us to make money, reduce cost, get it to the market, and to minimize our risk. There are plenty of opportunities to produce other things that we don't have that kind of risk. But and we all have to make these decisions. It's like investing in the stock market. There are 10,000 companies you can invest in. You have to pick the right companies that fit your level of risk to help you to meet your own financial objectives and sustainability objectives. And I found that I love tomatoes. They're beautiful. I still even have them coming up, the small ones, because the seeds are everywhere, so they still come up, and I sell those. They're beautiful. But growing tomatoes like you saw in that picture, I don't do that anymore because the risk is just too high, and I can grow other things like okra and potatoes that can withstand the insects and the heat and the temperatures and all the other things that are all natural, and I can still, at the end of the day, make a good profit. Does that make sense?
Just a comment on the potatoes. We grew potatoes, but the bugs come overnight. They strip the plant. I mean, overnight. You don't have time
They
to.
do. They really do. You know, the Wallace family donated, I've got Dr. Will Hoyt and the Wallace family donated this potato planter that looks like a Harley Davidson. You ride on it, and I just drop the potatoes in the ground, so that's one, and that's why I'm growing it. And then the Wallace family donated this deep soiler equipment that looks like a plow that lifts the potatoes up without destroying one of the potatoes. And it's low labor cost and high margin, and I can do a lot of it myself. And this year we're going to grow 36 rows of potatoes, 120 feet each row.
Yeah, I want to
Thanks.
speak to the insecticide or spraying, that sort of thing, and also speak to the tomatoes. We've grown tomatoes for a number of years, and we've had a fairly decent crop a couple years back. But last year, I think we had our best crop area ever. But I wanted to bring that up because in doing this sort of work, there is a risk to that. Because at the beginning of the season, it was the heirlooms, and I was telling my wife, I said, I hate these things. I'll never grow them again. But at the end of the season, they saved our butt. And I says, oh, I love these things, and I'll grow them again. And Jim, we made over $10,000 last year. We hope to make about $15,000 to $20,000 this year. It is about making money. But back to the insecticides and those sort of things. We grew is it neem or neem oil? We also added a detergent with that, and it makes it hot, and the bugs don't want to deal with it. But last year we used none of that. But I do know other organic farmers that will use insecticides. They're not going to kill them out. They never do, and they're going to wipe them all out. So the notion that that's going to happen it's a fallacy. It's not the case. But last year we used none at all. We also grew brassicas. I stunted by using the word brassica. We had broccoli and cabbage, and they just devoured them. And so what we had to do, we had to stay ahead of them. We would trim them back, pull them up, but then we had a good one, we would then harvest them and take them to the market. So I share that because it's a nip and tuck. It is a risk, and you're right. And whatever your profit margin is, you got to be able to live with it. But my 2 cents is to stick with it. Because some years, it's going to be like everything, like the heavens are going to open up, and you're going to have a harvest out of this world. And you're like, oh my God, what did I do right? Then other years, you're going to struggle. But if you stick with it, you're going to get it right sooner or later.
How do you deal with that? I mean, fungicide, fungus?
If it was me and it was taking mine up, I'd rip them all up right there on the spot. And then I would then not plant in that spot the next year and move it somewhere else. This is just my experience.
Okay.
So Jim touched on it. If you are dealing with blight issues, under protection is going to give you a better crop, like in a high tunnel. So if you're considering a high tunnel, that might be. So tomato production in high tunnels. Yeah. They don't want the pre-eaten tomato. Is that what you're saying? They don't want the pre-eaten tomato? No. And just to clarify, since we're at Organic Third Thursday, now Jim touched on it. He says he uses neem oil, and Keith says, some organic farmers do use insecticides. The rule of thumb, by the letter of the law in the organic program, is that if it is a naturally derived chemical or a naturally derived substance, like neem oil comes from a tree, then it's okay. But if it's a man-made chemical compound, it's a no-no. So just to clarify, that's what they're talking about when they're using insecticides or chemicals. And going back to this morning, if there's ever any question about it, the best thing to do is to check with your certifier if you're certified organic and say, hey, I'm thinking about using this. Is it okay? Jim, I have a question for you. Can I steal the mic and ask a question? So you are too late. So you've been certified organic for what, 2 years now? And so the first year Tony was a real pain in your tuchus, right? And you said, I mean, if I read you right, the record keeping and it was a learning curve and it was hard. How was it this past time around?
A lot easier. I do a lot of it both in my filing cabinet as well as on my computer. And so I've even started to use Square. So this coming season, I'll have everything as I produce invoices. That's going to even help. But, the more you do it, the better. And I've learned that once you have an invoice or a bill, put it in the folder right then. Don't put it to the side and say, well, I'm going to do that on Saturday. Oh, my goodness. Then it just turns into a hurricane. So I've learned to just go on and you save time and you help yourself to be organized to just put it away as you get it. So when I order my seeds from High Mowing, I take the bill and put it right in the folder right then to keep everything in place. And so I've got a file for 2021, 2022, 2023. Now I've already got a new one for 2024, but it becomes just a habit that is going to pay off, and it just takes your business to the next level. And I've learned, like I just went through the food safety certification process, and I'm also going to go through GAP, and I had to do that with Feeding Kentucky program, and that's very difficult as well. I mean, you're talking about even more standards on making sure that your files are correct and that everything is up to par and that your practices are correct, that you're being safe. But that also opens me up to being able to get into Whole Foods and other big accounts that I'm currently not at right now. So the more you're willing to be disciplined and compliant, it just opens up more doors for you because you're seen as someone that can be trusted. Your product's safe, which helps your brand overall.
I want to slip one more question, and then I'll shut up because I could go on all day. But so I'd love to hear each of you tell us about one aspect of your farm that you're most proud of, but then also, to counterbalance it, right? What's the biggest challenge that you're facing?
I would say the one that I'm most proud of is that Coleman Crest farm has a great brand in the Lexington market. It really is well known. A lot of customers hear about it. I'm on the news a lot. I'm going to be on NPR on February the 23rd. KDA did a whole series that's going to be out this month. God's Pantry came out and did a documentary to celebrate Black History Month. So I encourage all of you, the news media out there, they want to hear about farming. And if you're organic farming and you've got a unique story, which all of us do, get it out. Since I've been home, probably since 2020 up until this day, I probably have generated at least $300,000 worth of earned media. Earned media is where you don't have to pay, but the news media wants to hear about it, and that's trusted. Versus if I were paying for that media, and he's paying for that. So I'm proud, very proud of the brand, but that comes from a lot of hard work, consistency, good product, safe. No one sued me. I haven't had to file any claims. I'm proud of that. The thing that I could do a better job of, and you all saw that map, and I just saw this today, Doc, is that one column on there that I don't have is when to grow your cover crops. And it seems like I do everything, when I have that calendar, I do everything on that calendar. But I just noticed I don't have that column of when should I start seeding the cover crop, because it seems like, at least for the last 2 years, that I've missed the date and I've maybe gotten it out too late, and I haven't gotten the growth in the cover crop that I want, thereby helping to protect the soil from erosion and putting back into the soil. So I can do a better job on that. And that's going to help my farm to be more productive for the following season, but it's doing the right thing, and it's being protective, and that's what being certified is all about. So I've got a big opportunity in that area.
So I'm proud of all 5.5 acres of what we do, because we literally started from a field of nothing. We now successfully run our own meat production. We do rotational grazing. We use the manure as our compost in our high tunnels. We do everything that you can imagine being as organic as possible without being certified just yet. I mean, just the fact that my family is eating the cleanest product that we can produce is my proudest achievement. The hardest part for us would be financially, just because we started this. We didn't inherit anything. We literally started from the ground up. My family came from Christmas tree farms, and then the rodeo, and then now I'm a homesteader.
Rodeo?
Yes, I did. That was a long time ago. But I was not raised this way at all. I mean, this was not how I was raised. My parents did not teach me this. YouTube and KSU have taught me the things that I know now. But for us, with my husband being our sole income, our biggest struggle would be finances. But having all of these grants and all of these opportunities that are out there, and then that finding out that people don't know about them, and come the end of the year, the money is just wasted. It's wasted, and it blows my mind. I mean, I can literally talk till I'm blue in the face about how important grant money is, because my farm thrives on grant money. We couldn't have what we have now. My aquaponics was through the small farm grant. My freezers where I sell meat from my front porch came from the small farm grant. My high tunnel came from NRCS grant. I mean, we are a family that it's a DIY. I mean, we repurpose everything. Places where they're throwing fences out, brand new fences, because they just don't like the way they look anymore. I mean, we reuse that all the time. That's what's keeping chickens out of our high tunnel. But it's just reusing and finding that and knowing about this grant money and all this stuff that you can utilize that Kentucky offers that you got to put the work in to find it, but it's there.
I think, Dr. Lucas, the thing that I'm most proud of and excited about is understanding soil health. I think I had a sense of that before now, but I have just a little bit more deeper respect and understanding for that today. I didn't mention earlier, but I did talk about community. One of the things that I like to say out loud as well, in recent years, we're engaged in an effort about composting, organic composting. And I mentioned a little bit of that earlier, but we're looking at creating a hub where we can produce our certified organic compost on our farm, coupled with a statewide network infrastructure, and then we'll be able to get that compost out across the state. We're looking at, we got a plan together where we try to create 3 locations, hubs or stations where we could drop off the compost and get it to farmers at a reasonable rate. We met Jean Bonhotel from Cornell University up in your neck of the woods, the Hamptons and all that stuff, and compost, certified organic compost. Was it certified? Yeah, because she's U.S. Composting Council. A ton of compost up in her neck of the woods is $40 a ton. Anybody know what a ton of compost costs right now in Kentucky? And I talked about Calhoun, Kentucky, where I used to have a farm. Go down there, it was $300, but transportation is $300 to get it. So that 1 ton, $600. Fresh Start in Louisville, Kentucky, 1 ton is $900. I'm not quite sure where Thoroughbred down in Lexington, I'm not sure what they're charging. But one of the things I'm so proud of is being a part of that movement and looking at resources to create compost. One of the most challenging things is that I want to be able to get that 150 feet, 30-foot bed, 60-foot bed. I want to maximize as much as I possibly can off of every square inch on that bed. And that's my challenge. Before we talk about expanding any further, I want to be able to pull up a crop, go right back down, minimum till, composting, crimping. I want to be able to get it down to a science where it's like, that makes sense?
Yes.
For example, you have cabbage you pull out of the ground because it's got something bad on it. And you have to take out 20, 30, 40 of them. Do you put something back into that area, or you just let that go for the season?
You just heard me right there, right? My challenge is to do good at that, but because of that infected row of plants, I would not feel comfortable putting anything back.
But if it's not available to that fungus or whatever, could you?
You could, but here's what we would do, Dr. Lucas, then you can tell me later. We would come back in, our mad scientist over here, she would come back in with the black plastic, and she would put the black plastic down for 2 to 3 weeks. And then we would go revisit that. But what we want to be able to do is to have a part of that plan, that scheduled plan for that plot of land, those rows right there, how we're going to go in with spinach, arugula, and then when we pull that up out of a 30 or 60-day harvest, to go right back in with another plant, similar plant, and then by the end of the season, have a late fall, go right back in with spinach and arugula as well. You catch me on that? That's a challenge we want to be able to overcome.
How big is your farm?
We're about an acre. We got 3 plots. We just got to taking a look at my plots with their soil samples. We have 2 plots that's kind of on the low end, or the pH. We kind of like it in some phosphorus. I heard from the soil doctor, the good doctor over here. And the other one over here, we got everything is just really in a good range. It's really good. And that's where we had our heirlooms. They were the most healthiest tomatoes that we had ever. And if you look at the soil, like you did with your graft earlier, it makes all the sense in the world.
Hi. I am most proud of, just like Jessica said, that where I have our farm, there was nothing there. I don't come from a farming background. I'm a nurse by trade. And a lot of flower farmers have quit nursing to be flower farmers. I don't know what that means, but that is a big deal. And I work with a lot of ex-nurses that are flower farmers. But yeah, I feel so proud that I created something, and it created something that's good for the environment. I'm also proud that in our field right now we have cool flowers that are overwintering, and then all the other stuff that could be fallow right now has cover crop in it, and that was a big thing that we really wanted to get a lock on, and that we did, and I'm pumped to see how it goes. I also wanted to touch on and echo what they said about community. As far as the flower farming community around here, there's a lot of support for vegetable growers, and that's amazing because we need food and it's very important. The flowers might be like a lipstick commodity, but a local flower, it is. But yeah, they're not covered in chemicals like the imported ones. So I think creating that community here and support for other flower farmers is really important, and that's kind of what we're doing with the Kentucky Flower Market. And I wasn't very succinct with my words earlier, but we're a community that sells together to reduce redundancies for flower farmers trying to get their product to designers. So our main deal is wholesale. So we're trying to convert big wholesale buyers to local flowers and to put their budget locally. So yeah, I'm really happy about the community. And on that note, on March 2nd, here at the KSU farm, the Kentucky Flower Market, me and my partner Sarah are hosting, with the help of the Kentucky Horticulture Council, Jenny Love, who is from the No Till Flower podcast, and her farm is Love and Fresh Flowers, and she is going to come for a one-day conference to talk to us about regenerative flower farming and sustainability in cut flower production. So I'm really excited to bring her around because that doesn't happen very much, and so you should come to that. And then the biggest struggle, I think, is it used to be time for me, but I quit my full-time job, and that really, really helped. And it's basically just a lot of labor. We don't do anything with machinery at our farm. It's all hand hoes and wheelbarrows and stuff like that. So I think that's always really tough on you and your body.
I think we have a number here.
Could I say something? I want something I would like to share with the folks here. And I had some observations and some experiences. Of course, I know where Calhoun is. I worked there many days. I went into the store to buy some chemicals about 25 years ago. They were high and out of my reach, so I had to walk out of the store. And I started thinking about it. I have not used any chemicals on my garden for 25 years. Another observation, chemicals will kill the bugs. Chemicals will kill the trees. And chemicals will kill people. I lost a sister to breast cancer due to chemicals. We used lots of chemicals years ago on the farm. The US was testing their bombs in the atmosphere along with Russia, and it gave my sister breast cancer, and she passed away. Chemicals are good in their places, but they will kill people. Believe me, it will kill people. I was in either Davis County, I believe, and some people lived in the middle of a big crop field, a little tenant house there. The airplane sprayed that field. They had a very young child, a little baby, In about a few days, they had to make a trip to Louisville once a week. I saw the baby with my own eyes. It looked like a limp, wet dish rag. I don't know whether the kid survived or not, but chemicals can be very hazardous. And I tell you, you better use good common sense and be very wary of chemicals or things like that. I rest my case.
That's when, you were exactly right, and I wanted to wrap up and say one thing because I don't want to beat up on Tony. Tony Silvernail is outstanding. I tease him all the time that he's tough. But he's tough because he believes in organic and he wants to protect. He's not paid to protect Jim Coleman. He's paid and certified to protect the American consumer. And I did a trade mission about 5 years ago when I was in a different job in Prince George's County, where I led about 40 business people to China on a trade mission. And while we were there, I had a chance to talk to some of the locals there. And I said, what do you know about America and what do you love about America? And it was amazing. Forget about what you see on TV, they love America, the citizens. And I said, well, what do you love most? They said, clean air, clean water, and safe food, of which we all take for granted. What Tony Silvernail, sister here, and Tony, Dr. Sean, what they're committed to is making sure that when that label of USDA certified is on our produce, or that we're promoting that it's real, so that the consumer knows that they're buying a product and that they're making a clear decision to buy a product that doesn't have chemicals in it for their little kids and for themselves. And so it's not about being mean. If you can't stick to the standards, don't do it. I also learned through this process that there are farmers out there, big farms, that will, if they've got 600 acres, if they can get away with it, they'll grow 10 acres organic, hope you don't know the difference, and the rest of it is conventional. And you can't get over on Tony and these other folks that come out to check because they're looking at invoices on what you sell, and they're looking at your packages and what you paid for your seed, and they know yields, and they know it better match up. And that's just protecting us. So it's not about being hard on us, it's our tough. It's in protection of all of us who choose on a daily basis to make a decision to buy organic. And when it says organic, it should be. And we're fortunate to be in a country that has agencies and people that protect our interests to make sure that's real. Does that make sense? If you can't stick with it, then don't do it. And if you get found out and you're doing something wrong, you should lose your certification. You should.
Looks like we have a question in the back.
The organic standards talk about biodiversity and farmers building and enhancing biodiversity. So I was just curious if any of you could speak to how biodiversity is important to your farm or things that you're doing that you feel like are important for the biodiversity of your farm, and if they're working, if you're excited about them.
Growing the different types of crops and rotating them helps to promote biodiversity. And making sure that I can create an environment. I like to say that Coleman Crest Farm is a safe haven for pollinators and birds and nature. And so when you have nature where it's safe, then they help to replenish the soil because you're not killing them or hurting them. So for instance, praying mantis, I love to have more praying mantis on our farm because they manage the insect population, including the praying mantis population. They'll eat everybody. And when they eat, they poop, and that drops more nitrogen and other goodies into the soil to make it rich. So we believe in making sure we're doing everything to rotate, grow a wide variety of crops, rotate our crops so that we don't totally wipe out the soil nutrients, and making sure that we're safe of having all of our pollinator partners and ecosystem partners to come there and to help us to keep it safe.
I'll talk just a little. So not necessarily on the organic side of it, but in our aquaponics, we can't spray anything on anything, otherwise it'll kill my fish. And we don't like just to grow fish for no reason. Everything on our property has a reason to be there, and most likely it's in a freezer. So our fish have a purpose too. So such as like aphids love aquaponics. They love to live in there. But you know what likes to eat them? Ladybugs. So ladybugs are my go-to. You find a ladybug, you take it to the aquaponics. Like that's what you do, because they're helping me eating those. And then we do lots of rotational grazing, so that can be some of our biodiversity on our particular farm. So we do our larger animals first. We've got 4 fields, 3 of which are in rotation constantly. Our first field, second field, third field, and then 4th field is our backyard, but that's our sacrifice field. But with the biodiversity, we put our larger animals through first, because they like the taller grasses. Then we put our small ruminants through, such as our sheep and goats. And then when they go through, then our chickens go through. So that's bringing biodiversity to our farm, doing the rotational grazing, having one field completely empty at one time, giving it the rest time that it needs to successfully thrive, and all that manure that's going through, so we can give it that rest that it needs in order to grow better. So we're constantly doing practices in that go around with our biodiversity on our farm. Not necessarily that's our organic side, but that's our biodiversity side.
So what animals do you have?
I'm sorry?
What large animals do you have?
So we have two dairy heifers, and then we've got a burro.
Do you pasture them?
Yep. And we
How many acres do you need per cow?
I don't know. I got 5.5 acres.
Because we want to get a beef and a dairy. We're trying to figure out how much land is needed to be able to pasture them correctly.
So again, I mean, I'm not the person to say whether it's right or wrong, but I have, is it 2? We have 2 acres per cow. 2 acres per cow.
That's what you say. I mean, I was told when I first started with dairy that it was 1 acre per cow, but I found very quickly that that's, sorry, I was told 1 acre per cow at the beginning, but I found that that's really stretching it, and 2 acres is really what you need to bank on. You feed them hay.
We do hay. We do hay.
Feed them hay.
So again, we are only certifying our high tunnel organic, or transitioning to do that. So our fields, I'm sure we can do our whole property, but our main focus is the high tunnel. Now, we do not get specifically organic, but we do make sure that our hay is coming from a clean farm. We're making sure they are not spraying their fields. Now, if you were going the organic animal route, that you talk to Kenya. So, yeah. But for us, like right now, all of our animals are on roll bales. All of them. Yes. Correct. Yes.
Just curious, you mentioned you don't use any drip line in the high tunnel. Is there a reason, or is there a disadvantage to it?
Money.
Let me just follow up on that biodiversity. I think organic farming, the crux of it, it's biodiversity. And when I hear that, and I'm just really excited about it, because I see it with our pasture, we see it with our animals, we see it with our soil, our organic matter. And my big love fest is to be able to have all that stuff to just roll right into one another. and then create a tea to infuse the organic matter, but at some point ultimately close the loop that everything that we have within our farm starts and stops with the farm itself.
Mm-hmm.
Enough compost for your farm. And I was looking into horse boarding farms and get their remains. But I'm sure that they worm their horses and they feed them other stuff. Could I use that?
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Lucas could respond to that, but I just want to, manure is the best thing since sliced bread. But you're gonna have to be careful when you're bringing something into your farm. I'm telling you now. Jackson with minimaltill.com or nogrowers.com, they lost a farm because they brought manure into their farm and it was contaminated. It was not here because what it was contaminated with is new farmers, including myself. We see manure as pixie dust. I don't know what that means, other than it means everything and explains absolutely nothing. But we go and bet the farm on it. But the reality is that you do too much of that, you can compromise your farm, and if you're not careful with it, you can contaminate your farm where you have to uproot and sell your whole property. So I hope I wasn't too short and abrupt with that.
Yeah, there you go. I just want to answer the question. We plant for biodiversity. We want our farm to be a homestead, so we plant nut trees, and every year we try to plant a few. So we've got walnut, hazelnut. We planted pawpaws. The flower field is intermixed with asparagus. I use the asparagus to shade for my nasturtium. So my fields aren't like mono flower. There's just tons of crap all in each one. And some flower farmers don't like that. But yeah, and if you need a hookup on native trees, my sister-in-law owns Oakland Tree Farm in Paris. And that is a really good source for native plants from Kentucky.
This is going to be our last question, you all. It's almost 3 o'clock. Thank you guys so much, by the way.
Before we go, this gentleman over here was inquiring. I have something that might help. In each of our counties, we have offices, and I heard some of the people in this room refer to NRCS. We had one gentleman here that worked with NRCS. Well, we help to design and give a small amount of money to build high tunnels. And I'm retired from NRCS. They also have programs they call, I believe, EQIP, and they will help you with farm plans, how many cows per acre, and they also have what I refer to as soil scientists that will give you recommendations on what crops will grow best on what soils. And they give a little bit of cost share for those kinds of things. And they're located in each of the counties. So that might be helpful to know. Thank you.
Thank you again to our farmers. And again, thank you to everyone who participated, who showed up today. Thank you, Linnell, Shun, media, Dr. Lucas. Again, round of applause for these guys.